We'll just get started. Last week we discussed up to verse number 11 of Bhagavad Gita Chapter 1. We'll continue from verse number 12 today. I plan to cover till verse number 26 and have some question and answers with all of you. That way we have both theory as well as some question and answers to discuss any questions you have. So far, we just began the first chapter. We studied first 11 verses, which primarily covered starting with Dhritarashtra's inquiry. Dhritarashtra's inquiry to Sanjaya, we discussed Sanjaya has this special ability to see what is happening in the battlefield, and he would relate to Dhritarashtra. They're both in the Hastinapur, in the palace. Now, Sanjaya is relating whatever is happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Dhritarashtra. It begins with Dhritarashtra's inquiry. What is happening in Kurukshetra? After my sons and the sons of Pandu have assembled there, what is happening there? And the narration begins by Sanjaya. He talks about mainly the people that were there, and he was seeing that Duryodhana goes to his teacher Dronacharya and speaks the words to basically encourage everybody to become, fully giving their best in this war. So he would reach out to his teacher Dronacharya, who is fighting on his side, and explains about the situation that is there. He tries to kind of incite his anger towards, to fight to his full capacity by reminding him that he was, now we have this, your intelligent disciple, son of Drupada, Drishtarjumna, who arranged the great army of Pandavas in strategic positions so that they can really fight out with us. And then he goes on describing the great warriors, primarily first on the Pandavas sides, and then he talks about the fighters on his side. Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Sudhama, Vikarna, and some of Somadatta, Bhurisha, who are always victorious in battle. They're all greatest warriors. Now, all over the world, the greatest warriors have assembled in this fight. Just like if there is an area of interest, people all over the world will try to attend some conferences related to the area. Similarly, now, all the people in the world who are primarily Kshatriyas, who are valiant warriors, they're all assembled in this great war. Because they know if they win, there will be name and fame and basically the kingdom. If they lose, the consideration is that they would go back to heaven. So either way it is, they are ready for it, because that's the spirit of Kshatriya. Kshatriyas means they are always in this mode of passion where they're ready to give their best. Even we see, even in the recent times, like Shivaji Maharaj, they're very fervent warriors. Yeah, and then that's it. And then he tries to speak about Bhishma Dev and tries to encourage everybody in a political way, tries to encourage all the people that they should protect Bhishma Dev because he is an old person. Though he is the strongest, greatest fighter on their side, because he's an old man, we should all protect. I mean, it's trying to encourage everybody else also in a way that they would give their best. So all of you must now give your full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the flanks of the army. So the war is about to begin. situation is quite, uh, you know, quite heated, because war means life or death. It's just matter of time. In a few days or few moments, lives would be cut. All the body parts would be all over the place. It's a total destruction. In war, it's said that there is no winners. I mean, ultimately, there is so much destruction. Yeah, let's read from verse number 12. Somebody has a question. Verse number 12. Sat- Tasya sanjayan tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vridha pitamaha simhanadam vinadyochai sankham dadmau pratapavan. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Now Bhishma Dev, the greatest fighter in the entire battlefield, after hearing from Duryodhana the words of encouragement or whatever you consider, he wouldn't reply in words. That's the way of great warriors. He would just blow his conch shell, showing his commitment for this fight. And that sound is like a roaring of lion. It's extremely fearsome for everyone, and that gives a lot of joy to Duryodhana. And the other thing is, conch shell is a symbol of Vishnu, and Bhishmadev is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So he knows very well that war is in our hand. I mean, we'll give our best, but ultimately the result is in the hand of God. We are not the decider of the result. He knows very well. And so he's symbolically, when he's blowing the conch, he's just informing everybody there that we will give our best, but what comes out as result is not in our hands, it is in God's hand. And ultimately, you see, Lord Krishna is on the other side. So barely do we have any chances of winning. You can see here the same line. Indirectly, by the symbolism of conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. But still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in this connection. Tatah sankascha bhairyascha panavanaka gomuka sahasaiva anyanta sasabdhas tumulo bhavat. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. It was a great uproar of sound when everybody. So now the chief of the fighters had had blown his conch shell. Now everybody started in coherence immediately. They're all sounding their various conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, all of this to create an atmosphere of surcharged with this mood of fighting. Tata svetair hayair yukte mahati shandane stitau madhava pandavaschaiva divyau shankau pradhadmatau matu. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Now, the party on the other side, which is primarily Pandavas, headed by Arjuna, and his chariot was driven by Lord Krishna, they also sounded their transcendental conchals. So now, if you see here, their conchals were mentioned as transcendental. Divyao, the word Divyao is used. Divyao is symbolism of basically Lord's potency. Because Lord is all powerful, his conchal is mentioned as transcendental. And Arjuna, in preparation for war, he was seeking celestial weapons before the war begins, while they were all in Ajnatavas. They know that this is going to happen at some point in time. So at that time, uh, he pleases Chitraratha, the Gandharva, the chief Gandharva, and through him he gets beautiful horses, the white horses that were driving his chariot, and his conch, his uh, chariot. His chariot was gifted to him by Agnidev, and his quiver as well as the conchal were given by his own transcendental father Indra, the heavenly demigod. So in this way, everything on his side was all full of blessings. And above everything else, Lord Krishna was his chariot driver, meaning he's always there for him, for any counsel, advice. So all positive, auspicious signs were there with Pandavas, specifically Arjuna. Yeah. The sounding of the transcendental conchals indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side because Krishna was on the side of Pandavas. Jayastu Pandu Putrana Yesham Pakshe Janardana is a very famous verse, which means victory is always with persons like the sons of Pandu because Lord Krishna is associated with them. Those who had the support of Lord, victory is always with them, no matter what. No obstacle is difficult for them. Similarly, if we take seriously to the shelter of Lord in our own life, personal life, we can see the same thing in our life. The dharma will prevail, and especially those who take the shelter of God, they are always protected. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there. And because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. And when you take shelter of Krishna, naturally, his wife, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi, is also with them. So all auspiciousness, all good fortune is always with those people who humbly take shelter of God. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conchal of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated had been donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna, and this is indicated by this chariot. This chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn, all over the three worlds. In this way, there are many auspicious signs towards Arjuna and Krishna. Verse number 15. Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Paundram Dadmau Mahashankam Bhima Karmo Vrukodara. Panchajanyam Hrishikesha means Panchajanyam is the conchal of Hrishikesha, which is Krishna. So Krishna's conchal has a name, Panchajanyam. Interestingly, every one of Pandava's conchal were named. Devadattam Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya means Arjuna. Arjuna's another name is Dhananjaya because he actually gets wealth when he acquires wealth when Yudhishthira becomes the king. And his conchal is named Devadattam because it was given by Lord Indra, Deva. Poundram Dadmau Mahashankam. Poundram was the name of conchal of Bhima. who is a Vrukodara. Vrukodara means a voracious eater. Bhima is a great, he does eat well and also produce results as well. He is a Bhima Karma, means one who performs Herculean tasks. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his the Devadatta. And Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Poundra. Yeah. So Bhima was very valiant. He throughout the war he would be shouting, creating terror in the hearts of Kauravas throughout the fight. And whenever he tries to fight with somebody, his words themselves would create such terror in the hearts of the opponents. They would just lose their heart and they would just surrender and die, most likely. So that was the spirit of Bhima. So this is the spirit of Kshatriyas. They don't care for their life. They're fighting for dharma. That's it. Especially on the side of Pandavas. So they're fearless and they have Krishna on their side. Lord Krishna is referred to as Rishikesha in this verse because he is the owner of the senses. Rishikesha word literally means Rishik means senses, and because Lord actually is within everyone as Paramatma, he actually controls the senses. So that's why he's called Rishikesha. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are part and parcel of his senses. So all of us were all actually part of this whole God, and we're all part of his. We are like part and parcel of God. Even though generally part and parcel of something is lifeless, but here we're all living. We are all spiritual in nature, though. That's the difference. But we are still part and parcel of the whole. Just like part and parcel would be satisfied. For example, if my hand want to be, uh, I'll give you a story actually to explain this better. There was a story that talks about the bodily senses. One time, all the bodily limbs, they go on a strike. The hands say, we do so much work and we acquire all, we cut the vegetables, we make all the vegetables, and finally this tummy is enjoying all the food. So we'll go on strike, we'll not do any work. Legs also say the same thing. We walk all the way, we do all the hard work, but ultimately the belly is the enjoyer of all that we do. The eyes, hands, every limb of the body tries to go on a strike. When they go on strike, ultimately what happens is the person doesn't get food, and so he becomes weak, and naturally all the body parts become weak. Then all the body parts realize that actually we should work in cooperation. And when the belly is fed, all of us get energy naturally. So again, they give up their strike. They all go back to doing what they are supposed to do. And naturally, again, the food is available. And when the belly eats it, naturally all the body parts get the energy. Similarly, another example. When you want to water a tree, you don't go water each leaf or flower or branch. You go water the root. Similarly, when you water the root, naturally the entire tree gets the nourishment. That's exactly the relation between the jivas and Paramatma or God. When we serve God in a pleasing way, naturally all of us get satisfied. That is our natural position. Just to quote another example, in Mahabharata, there was an instant when uh, a great sage, Durvasa Muni, he comes and visits Pandavas who are in Aranyas. Uh, and he comes with about 60,000 disciples. Imagine, he had 60,000 disciples, and all of them go visit Pandavas. And they were especially sent by Duryodhana, because Duryodhana knows that Pandavas are poor now. They can't really do much to please Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni is known to be easily angered unless good facilities are provided to him. That was the nature of him. Gets easily incited. So all these disciples, along with the great sages, go, and actually Duryodhana sends him at a time when it is quite late past lunch hour. And the way the arrangement of lunch was done for Pandavas is that they have this special bowl in which they get the meal that is made just for them, just for the the lunch or dinner. It comes out at once, and that's it. So they have this special bowl which can provide their daily food. It was a blessing to Draupadi. And so the story goes that the Durvasa Muni comes there, and the Pandavas were surprised because they just had lunch and there is no more food. The bowl was empty, and it gives food just enough for the people available there. If it is that all these people were there just like half an hour before, they could have arranged food for all of them. But now it is just past lunch, so they don't have any food to provide to the sage and his disciples. And the sage and disciples reach out, and they look tired, and then naturally Pandavas inquire, and they would, they were looking for basically lunch at the time, the disciples and the Durvasa Muni. And Pandavas were in confusion. So immediately they were requested to go take bath in the nearby river, so that in the meantime they can think about something and solve this problem. And they have no way to provide the food because they just had lunch, and the special Annakuda, it doesn't give any more food. So immediately at that time, Lord Krishna appears, knowing the trouble that Draupadi is in. And then Lord Krishna inquires from Draupadi, what do you need? Why are you so upset? Why are you so sad? And Draupadi relates the story of the visit of Durvasa Muni and his disciples, and the sad story that they have just had lunch, so they cannot provide lunch to the Muni and his disciples. And Lord Krishna asks Draupadi, I just want one grain if you have in that vessel. Draupadi says, I just washed, I know there is nothing. Lord says, just go and check if there is anything. And she goes and checks the bowl. There is one speck of food in that bowl. And so she happily returns and gives that to Lord Krishna. And Lord just eats that one grain of rice. And he says, I am satisfied. When Lord says satisfied, suddenly all the disciples who are all taking bath, as well as the Durvasa Muni, they feel their tummy was full. All of a sudden. When Lord said, I am satisfied, immediately everybody felt satisfied. And they feel that maybe Draupadi would have made the arrangements for our food. If we go back, now that we are so full, we cannot go and eat even a single grain. Now if we go back and inform Draupadi that we are full, we cannot take, it is such an insult, it's such a embarrassment for her. Let's not go, it's an embarrassment for us as well as for her. So let's not disturb them, let's run away from here. So all the disciples as well as Durvasa Muni, they all go away from there. They don't even visit Pandavas again. So this story tells us that just by satisfying Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, automatically everybody gets satisfied. So that's the exact relation between Jiva and Paramatma. When we try to satisfy God, naturally we are satisfied. If we want to lead a satisfying life, try to have that connection with God. Always have that relationship with God. When you maintain that relation, naturally your life will be a satisfied one. Yeah. And ultimately, because Lord is within us and He controls the senses, we go through a lot of mental agony, all these problems. But if we understand, ultimately, our senses are also under control of God because He is Hishikesha. When we try to satisfy His senses, naturally we get satisfied. That's how it works. Yeah. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrukodara because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks such as killing the demon Hidimba. Yeah. Now it will be the description of the rest of the Pandavas' consuls. Ananta Vijayam Raja, Kunti Putro Yudhishthara, Nakula Sahadevascha, Sughosha Manipushpakau, Kasyascha Parameswaha, Sikandi cha Maharata, Drishtadhyumno Viratascha, Satyaki cha Parajita, Drupado Draupadeyascha, Sarvesha Prithivipate, Saubhadrascha Mahabahu, Shankhan Dadmau Pratak Pratak. Translation: King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula and Sahadeva blew the Saghosha and Manipushpaka. That great archer, the king of Kasi, the great fighter Shikhandi, Drishtadyumna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra. Who is it? Anybody knows the name of Subhadra?
Abhimanyu?
Abhimanyu.
Yes. All blew their respective conch shells. So all of them blew their respective conch shells. Sanjay informed King Dhritarashtra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom was not very laudable. The signs already indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in the great battle, beginning with the grandsire Bhishma, down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including the kings from many states of the world. All were present there, and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhritarashtra because he encouraged the policy followed by his son. So it is all primarily because of King Dhritarashtra. I'll just relate the story that happened a little before the war has begun. As a last ditch effort, when Lord Krishna goes as a peace messenger to ward off the war. The war is determined, people who are determined to fight, but as a last ditch effort, Lord Krishna himself goes to the courtyard of Duryodhana and he requests, just give 5 villages to our Pandavas because they are Kshatriyas. It is their dharma to rule. And Duryodhana would say, I wouldn't give the land that would fit even the eye of the needle. Imagine how envious he is. He wouldn't want to give a village to his brothers. And he attempts to arrest Krishna in that assembly. One should never do such thing to the messenger. If suppose a king sends a messenger to another country, he should be treated with respect. Duryodhana, his ploy is that, oh, it is just to insult Pandavas. He said, let's arrest Krishna. And when he was about to arrest, before even the arrest, Lord Krishna sees if he can convince through Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra hears all these negotiations, and he says, what can I do if the will is that, if the providence is that the war is about to happen? He says as if he is helpless in this situation. See, and then Krishna says at the time, very interestingly, he says, look at the emperor of the world says he is helpless in this situation. He is the one to guide his son, but he is not interested in guiding his son. So that was because of Dhritarashtra's attachment, the blind attachment of Dhritarashtra towards his sons. He couldn't see the goodness of Pandavas. He was blindly attached to his sons, and he could not see how they were all trying to the Kauravas are trying to destroy Pandavas in various ways throughout their life. He would not interfere in any of those negative tactics of the sons of Kuru, the Kauravas. So it's a lesson basically. If somebody is emotionally attached, the familial attachment causes one weak-hearted. So Dhritarashtra's weak-heartedness is because he has this familial attachment. So because of that attachment, he's not able to, he's blinded. He's basically blinded to what is right, what is wrong. And another interesting part in this narration is, even God's counsel would not solve problems sometimes, because ultimately Lord would not interfere in the independent will of the Jiva. Even though Jiva is negligible to him, he would not interfere in the will of the Jiva. Because if he interferes, then there is no question of independence for the Jiva. If suppose, if I have control on my, say, my friend, and if I force him to love me, is that called love? It's not called love. Because love should come out of one's own accord, one's own choice. It cannot be forced. Similarly, even though the Jiva and Paramatma, they are so tied in a loving son and father relation, but still Lord as Father doesn't force the son to love him. Because when you force, then there is no question of independent will. And there is no question of love itself, because love means two people choose on their own, out of their own free will, to love. So until we choose to love God, God wouldn't force. Similarly, God wouldn't interfere in the will of the Jiva. All the Jivas, all that we have is primarily the independent will to either love God or not God, or not. So that's exactly the reason we are all in this material realm, the Kunta. Why we are not in Vaikunta? Because we have chosen to not love God. So that was a choice we made, unconsciously or consciously. So we are all in this world. And when we again choose back to connect with God, yoga, right? Yoga means again reconnect. Yoga literally means connect back to our original reality. So when we again develop this love for God, we are now more present in this material world. And that should happen by our choice. It's not by God's force. God wouldn't force. Look at this incident. Even the Lord, he is the supreme proprietor, supreme controller, supreme enjoyer, supreme of everything. Still, when Duryodhana chose not to do what Lord's will is, he wouldn't interfere. Just like I was giving the example the other day, again I'll repeat just to clarify. Suppose the son of president is there, he says, I want to be president. Father says, no, you can't be. You are too young to rule the country. Son says, no, he's adamant. Then what would father do? He wouldn't force him, he wouldn't beat him. That may be one way, but most likely he would give the choice. He would arrange. So the father arranges some kind of a, the assembly hall where he can act like a president. So this boy, the son of the president, he goes and sits in the chairman seat and tries to make orders. And ultimately he feels that, oh, this is all a drama. There is nothing that's happening. Ultimately he realizes, no, this is just waste of time. And he goes back to his father and just has his good relation with his father. So similarly, we are all in this world trying to enjoy in various ways. But we all realize ultimately this is not a place of enjoyment. So that is the turning point of life. When we are going through all these difficulties of life, we should understand that this is the nature of this world. That's how it is designed to be. Even when we go through a few more verses in second chapter, we'll see how Arjuna goes through this tremendous anxiety. And then when he surrenders to Krishna, then he gets the counsel of Krishna. Until then, Krishna would not speak Gita. Because when the relationship is like a friend and friend, when the friend speaks to another friend, it's just a friendly talk. It's not going to really change the heart of the people. So when Arjuna takes the position of the disciple and starts inquiring Krishna about the life in general and the purpose of life and many other important questions, then Krishna's real counsel begins. Similarly, Lord is a person just like you and me. Just because you are a person, the source of you must be should have the personal characteristics. But his capabilities are infinite. That's the main difference. But as I mentioned, Lord would not force Jiva. He leaves the free, independent will to the Jiva. Even Lord Krishna's counsel fails in this case to ward off the war. Saghosho dhartarashtrana hridayani vyadarayat nabhascha prithvim chaiva tumulo abhyanu nadayan. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Look at this. When Bhishma and all the Kauravas were blowing their conch shells, nothing was spoken in these terms, like shattering the hearts of Pandavas. No. But here you see, when all these vibrations were started, naturally the people on the side of adharma, their hearts are feeling shattering. This is a sign of weakness of the heart. When Bhishma and the others on the side of Duryodhana blew their respective conch shells, there was no heartbreaking on the part of Pandavas. Such occurrences are not mentioned. But in this particular verse, it is mentioned that the heart of the sons of the Dhritarashtra was shattered by the sound vibrated by the Pandavas party. This is due to the Pandavas and their confidence on Krishna. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. Because there is the shelter of God. The connectivity brings so much confidence in our life. And time to take, we remember Lord, so that way we connect to Him and we receive that potency and power. So that's exactly what we all can do. When we relate to God in a very personal way, in an intimate way, then we receive the blessing of Lord and the protection of Lord. So that confidence makes Pandavas fearless. Just like if a small boy is trying to cross the road, if suppose he is trying on his own, he would be really afraid because all these vehicles are going all these ways. He's really scared. But suppose If the boy is holding the hand of his father, imagine how much support he has. He would not even look in the direction of what is coming, what is going. He knows he has the protection and he just needs to follow the steps properly with his guidance. So, similarly, when somebody has the shelter of God, then they are protected. They feel that confidence in their life. Ata vyavasthitan drishtva dhartarashtraन् kapi vija dhvaja pravritte shastra sampate dhanur udyamya pandava rishikesham tadavakyam idam aha mahipate. At the time, sorry, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Interestingly, the chariot that Arjuna is in, which was gifted to him by Agnidev, it has a flag on which Hanumanji's picture was there. So there was an interesting story behind this. So when Pandavas were pursuing weapons in the Kamyavan near Himalayas, so one time they were all walking near Badrikashram, which is high up in Himalayas. So there was Alakananda river flowing by the side, and there was a 1,000-petal lotus that was passing down the waters in the Alkananda river. So Draupadi, she sees this beautiful 1,000-petaled flower, and she gets attracted. And even she was attracted by both the sight as well as the smell. And she sees Bhima on the side, and so he immediately requests, "Dear Bhima, if you can arrange more of these flowers, I would like to take it to our Kamyavan residence and present it to Yudhishthir Maharaj, the eldest of the brothers." Bhima was okay, he was determined to get this. He would go up on the side of the river and tries to find where they are. And this was a big forest, and there's a mountain, and he would walk up. And while he was walking up, he would be roaring loudly, and all the animals like lions and tigers, they would be afraid. They would scare at the sight of the Bhima, and would keep on uprooting the trees while he's on the way. Just make some noise all the way. At some point on his way, he would find an old monkey sitting down on this mountain, and he asks. Basically, he is on the way, and so this big monkey was on the way. So he respectfully asks, "Hey, monkey, move your tail away." Monkey says, "I'm too old. I cannot move my tail on my own. If you can, if you can do it, that will be very nice." It's a culture in those days that people don't just step on other. So Bhima was following that etiquette, and he was asking this monkey, and monkey would say, "I can't do, I'm too old. Why don't you lift the tail?" Bhima initially tries to just move it with one hand. Then it was too heavy for him, and he puts both hands now and tries to lift. He couldn't do it even with both hands. And then he tries all his strength. Surprisingly, he can't move the tail of a monkey. And then he immediately understands that this monkey cannot be ordinary monkey. Then he humbly bows down to monkey and requests him to reveal who he is. And the monkey turns out to be Hanumanji. And Hanuman who is actually a brother of Bhima. In the sense, both of them were sons of Vayudev. And they both hug each other. Bhima was pleasantly surprised to see his brother, and happily Hanumanji shows his form that he was uh, he was having when he was leaping to Lanka. The huge, humongous form that Hanumanji had when he was leaping towards Lanka. So he shows that to Bhima, and he also tells him that there is going to be a great war in your family soon. Just like I was with Ram, I'll be with Krishna this time, but I'll not be directly participating, but I will be on the chariot of your brother Arjuna. And whenever you shout, because Bhima would be always shouting in the war, the biggest roars in the entire war was coming from this mouth of Bhima. He was terrifying everybody while during the war. Whenever you and the same thing was being done when Hanuman was doing war for Lord Rama. The same kind of terror was being created by Hanumanji when he was fighting for Lord Rama. And he would say, whenever you roar, I would join my voice with you, and I would also roar with you and terrify everybody. So that was the story behind this flag of Hanuman. So took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. Arjuna was about to now shoot the arrows. He was almost ready. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. It's surprising. It's a time for war. Arjuna, at this time, asking questions is not really expected at this time. Arjuna asking questions, or Arjuna speaking some words to Krishna at this time is not really expected. So something interesting is getting unveiled at this point. Arjuna uvacha senayor ubayor madhye ratham stapayame achyuta yavad etan niriksheham yodhu kaman avastitan kairmaya saha yuddhavyam asmin rana samudjame. Arjuna said, O infallible one, which is Krishna, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trail of arms. So he is asking Krishna to actually draw his chariot right before the other party, the two armies, in the middle of the two armies. You want to see who are all present here, because they're all his family members. Surprising that they're all here to fight with him. So he just wants to see all those people who are assembled here. Although, so interestingly, the word the Achyuta is used in this, so that's the word infallible. That's a very interesting use, because you see, Lord Krishna, who is the supreme Lord of the entire creation, he becomes like a chariot driver. Even though he becomes the chariot driver for Arjuna, his position is not minimized. Just because uh, a, a rich man serves his own servant doesn't make him a poor man. So similarly, even the Lord Krishna becomes the chariot driver for Krishna, so for Arjuna, his position as the Lord is not minimized. Although Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. The relation between Lord and his devotee is very, very sweet. And the devotee always looks for the opportunities to serve Lord, and the Lord himself also looks for opportunities to serve his devotee. Now, Lord Krishna took the position of the chariot driver because he wants to serve his devotee, Arjuna. As charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he did not hesitate to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, he is the supreme personality of Godhead, Hrishikesha, the Lord of the total senses. Yeah. So now this, what I said is here. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking the opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes great pleasure in his pure devotees, assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the giver of orders. This is a very interesting proposition here. Lord himself enjoys being ordered by his devotees. Imagine, that was the position that Lord really loves to have in his loving relationship with his devotees. Since he is master, everyone is under his orders. No one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is infallible master in all circumstances. That's the nature of the Lord. We see this in time and again, so many circumstances, in the lives of many great devotees, we have seen this. Lord always protects. I was hearing the story of a disciple of Prabhupada in the early years of the movement, when ISKCON just started in 1968-69. His name is Bhuri Janadas. He was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Very young man at the time, with his wife, in his 20s, late 20s, very innocent young man. But he was very much attracted to the movement. And his guru Srila Prabhupada, he asked him to go visit Hong Kong to actually share the message of Gita with the people of Hong Kong. Those are very early years of ISKCON, and many disciples were just like these warriors all over the world came here. Many people who are very deeply interested in spirituality have come and taken shelter of Srila Prabhupada, and they made him their guru. And Srila Prabhupada, even though these people are young and they just learned Bhagavad Gita a little bit, just like 1 or 2 years, and he would take so much confidence in them that he would tell them to go and preach this message all over the world. And this young couple, they don't have much money, nothing. They would go just on the order of their spiritual master, the teacher. They would just go to Hong Kong, and literally they don't have any money. And this particular devotee, he relates his story when he goes there in the first few days. They were in so much anxiety, but they were just following the process that Srila Prabhupada gave them. Just chant the names of God and try to share the message with the neighbors around them. And surprisingly, even though they had no money, because about like $150 was being arranged for them a little later, and that was being sent to them afterwards. So they would just go first with some little money. Somehow they just have money for a flight ticket. They go there and they start, they find a neighborhood and they start teaching Gita and started sharing the message of spirituality. And somebody would arrange for a home for them. Somebody would arrange for their food, some vegetables. Everything gets arranged. So they were really surprised that all of this was happening just because they were sharing the message of God. And this would continue for almost 2 weeks until when the money arrives. And after the money arrives, they would surprisingly see that not much help is being arranged. When one takes shelter of God, naturally things would be arranged. That was a lesson, a real life story in the recent past. So that was I was really touched when I heard the story. They were all innocent. In this way, so many stories like that. There's so many stories. Even I can relate my own story a little bit. So I was very young. Um, I just got a job after college. I was working at Samsung India in Bangalore, in India. I just started Krishna consciousness journey. I was very much touched by the message of Gita. Started reading Gita, and I was staying with people who are spiritually minded. And I told I have this official duty. I have to go out to this country. I was deputed to go to Korea for about 3 weeks. It's just a short-term project. And I just started this Krishna consciousness, and I didn't know how to get vegetarian meal. No idea, nothing. And pleasantly, so many of my spiritual friends, they have arranged, somebody arranged. There was one Mataji, she has the ideas on cooking chapatis that would last for at least a month. She can cook chapati and give me, and that would last for a month. And similarly, I was looking for how do I would have an altar of Krishna so that I can see his picture and make some prayers, chanting, whatever, every day in the morning. And somebody arranged a single picture of altar with Krishna and his devotees, all the picture of Guru Parampara and all of that. And so many things were arranged. I was pleasantly surprised. I was just desiring in my heart that may I have this Krishna consciousness when I go and visit this place. And surprisingly, everything was arranged. My food was taken care. I never need to worry. I never needed to worry when I went there. Literally, there was no vegetarian food when I went there. At least back in those years, 2005. I was pleasantly surprised that food is arranged. I have and the place was also very nice. The place I had my privacy where I can have my picture and I could offer whatever I'm eating before I eat. I could offer to God. So all the things were arranged. I was pleasantly surprised that just by my sincere desire to just follow this process in my own way, God has arranged all of these things. So when we have that sincere desire, definitely God's protection, God's help is always there. So if we have that faith, and that increased my faith multifold after that. When I have this sincere desire, when I want to follow the spiritual path, there is perfect arrangement for that. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with his cousins and brothers. But he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhana, who was never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. Therefore, he was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Who are these people who are all ready to fight here? Although there was no question of a peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. See, because Arjuna was a devotee, a pure devotee of Lord. Naturally, a devotee is very kind-hearted. He wouldn't fight. Of course, he's a Kshatriya. His dharma is to protect. Dharma, his that's his mode of operation. But still, he wanted to avoid the war. But still, it happened because of the obstinacy of Duryodhana. So it means when it is necessary, one should fight to protect dharma. When Krishna himself says, "Pavitranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge." Pavitranaya sadhunam, to protect the innocent and devotees. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, to eliminate unwanted people. Vinashaya dushkritam. Dushkritam means the bad elements. Vinashaya means to eliminate them. Vinashaya dushkritam dharma samsthapanardhaya. to establish dharma in this world. Sambhavami yuge yuge means I come again and again, millennium after millennium. So Krishna, as the well-wisher and the father of all the living entities, he would come and again, time and again, to weed out, to root out the weeds. Just like when you have a crop, you have the main crop as well as the weeds. So time and again, you have to come and make sure all the weeds are taken out so that you have a good crop. Similarly, Lord as the Father and the best well-wisher of all the living entities, he would come and again, time and again, to clean up the entire atmosphere. So now again he comes here to eliminate people like Duryodhana, who were all unwanted elements, the followers of adharma from this world again. So Arjuna is an instrument in the hand of God. So in this whole event. Yotsyamanam avekshoham yetetra samagata. So when you see this dash on ye, that is a dirgha. Samagata. Dhartarashtraya durbedher durbuddher yuddhe priya chikirshava. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. So Arjuna is saying to Krishna, let me see who are all assembled here to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra, who is Duryodhana and Dushasana. It was an open secret that Duryodhana wanted to usurp the kingdom of the Pandavas by evil plans in collaboration with his father Dhritarashtra. Therefore, all persons who had joined the side of Duryodhana must have been the birds of the same feather. Arjuna wanted to see them on the battlefield before the fight was begun, just to learn who they were. But he had no intention of proposing peace negotiations with them. Not time for peace, because that was already attempted beforehand. It was also a fact that he wanted to see them to make an estimate of the strength which he had to face, although he was quite confident of victory because Krishna was sitting by his side. If you want to be really confident in life, be on the God's side. Have God in your life. That's going to be the real confidence. The confidence is not in the self. Of course, the self-confidence comes with the confidence in God. That's the real confidence. Because how much ever powerful you may be, how much strong you may be, you would face difficulties, you would face challenges in life. But when you know you are siding on the side of God, you have extra confidence. You put your effort, best effort. If the result doesn't come in your favor, you know that it's not the will of God ultimately. It's not in your best interest to get that. That's the understanding we get to. We don't complain in life because we know everything happens perfectly according to what we deserve. Of course, sometimes we get bad things, sometimes good things, but we continue to doing good things. The things that are ordained in scriptures. We don't violate the laws because violating laws would create future bad karma. So, just like I was telling the other day, it's a very powerful example. I'll just repeat it. There were farmers in a village. They would keep accumulating rice every year in a granary. They have a big granary, and every year the new crop that comes, they would pour from the top. And for their usage, every single day they would take from the bottom. They would take for their usage, everyday needs. So sometimes, some years, the rain was good, the crop was healthy, the grain quality is great. So they would pour very high quality grains. In some years, there would be drought, there won't be good rains. So there would be naturally bad crop, low quality grains. So they would pour whatever comes in the granary from the top. So one year, the farmers really worked hard. They had a great crop. There was nature support, good rain, and the crop was of top quality, first class. And they poured the best quality rice from the top. But in turn, when they were digging from the bottom, they were getting all the low quality grains because 4 years back they had very bad rain. Similarly, sometimes in our current life, we may be seeing a lot of difficulties, challenges, because what we are today is the result of many past lives. It's not just this one life, it is a summary of millions of lives potentially. So everything is justly happening. Nothing is out of the order. Everything is perfectly happening according to what we are destined to. You may be the best person as of now. You may be doing all good things, but you may be getting bad results sometimes, unexpected results. You might see there was a complaint, right? So many people say, why they would ask, why do bad things happen to good people? Or vice versa. Why do good things happen to bad people? Because it's all karma. What they're due right now is what they're going to experience. And because if one becomes too proud, seeing that everything is going their way, and they do recklessly, they act recklessly, they're going to accumulate bad karma, and their future is going to be dire, very nasty. So, what we have in our control is our future. Not too much worried about the current. When you take shelter of God, and you take shelter of spiritual knowledge, it actually minimizes your stress. Even though there is, because of your bad karma, you have all these things that you have to go through, but still because of the shelter that you have taken in this process of spirituality, that minimizes the impact. It's like, suppose there was a storm and you are in the Pacific Ocean in the middle of it, and you have no boat, you are just swimming against the current. How hard it is if there is going to be, you're a great swimmer, but still it is extremely difficult to face the storm when it is moving in all directions. A very great storm. But suppose you are in a small boat, how much sheltered you are, because even though there is a great storm and the boat is moving up and down, still there is some shelter. Similarly, when one takes the shelter of God, even though the atmosphere is so depressing, so negative in your life, still you're at least holding up because you have the shelter of the boat of God. Imagine the persons who don't have, they may decide to take their life away, or because they, all the people who go through severe depression, severe anxiety strokes, or thoughts of suicide, because they don't take shelter. They have no shelter at all. Sometimes they take shelter of wine, sometimes they take shelter of gambling. People always need some shelter. Somebody smokes, that's their shelter. If they're in anxiety, they go and smoke. If somebody's shelter is spiritual life, that is the best, because that is the right way to handle the anxiety, or any situation, negative situations of life. Yeah. So Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. Lord knew exactly what's going to happen to Arjuna now. He very well knows, because he is the Paramatma of everyone. So he knows exactly what's going on in the mind of Arjuna. Because Arjuna is a soft-hearted devotee. Ultimately, he is a great warrior externally, but his heart is also very butter-like soft. And he's very considerate of his family, even though the family, the Duryodhana and all the brothers were so atrocious towards them. They would rob their kingdom, they would insult their wife, they would throw them out of the kingdom, they would try to burn where the living place, lack house that they were living in. In so many ways they were oppressing them. But still, look at the heart of Arjuna. I mean, nothing happened yet. It will be revealed in the next verses. But he was very kind to them. As Hrishikesha, the director of the senses and mind of every living entity, Krishna could understand Arjuna's purpose in placing the chariot in the midst of the armies. Thus he did so and spoke as follows. Bhishma Drona Pramukhata Sarvesham cha Mahikshitam Vacha Partha Pashaitan Samavetan Kurun iti. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, "Just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here." Krishna says for the first time here. And interestingly, he brings Arjuna between the two armies and right ahead, facing Bhishma and Drona, both of whom Arjuna considers worshipable. In fact, they're worshipable for the entire people assembled there. The Drona, who thought every single thing that Arjuna is going to display in the next few days. And Bhishma, the most loving grandfather, especially inclined for Pandavas. Now his familial attachment will come up now at this point, because he is just beholding his own family members. Imagine you are in a situation where you have to fight out your own family, and the family, especially the people who you love the most, you worship the most. Drona, he is worshipable to Arjuna. Now he is in a situation to fight with him. It's such a emotionally drowning circumstance for Arjuna and other Pandavas. As the super soul of all the living entities, Lord Krishna could understand what was going on in the mind of Arjuna. The use of the word Hrishikesha in this connection indicates that he knew everything. And the word Partha, meaning the son of Pritha or Kunti, is also similarly significant in reference to Arjuna. As a friend, he wanted to inform Arjuna that because Arjuna was the son of Pritha, the sister of his own father Vasudeva, he had agreed to be the charioteer of Arjuna. Now, what did Krishna mean when he told Arjuna to behold the Kurus? Did Arjuna want to stop there and not fight? Krishna never expected such things from the son of his aunt Pritha. The mind of Arjuna was thus predicted by the Lord in a friendly joking. Krishna knows exactly what's going on in the mind of Arjuna. So he's just using this whole situation to teach us Gita. Now Arjuna is the instrument in this whole affair. He brings them there. Now something interesting is going to happen very soon. Not right now, but very soon. Tatra pasyastitan partha pitrin atha pitamahan acharyan matulan bhatran putran pautran sakhim stata swasuran suhridas chaiva senayor ubayorapi. There, Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his father-in-law and well-wishers. See, Arjuna sees 3 levels up, 3 levels down. Interestingly, he sees his grandfather and also grandson. Arjuna at this time is of about 87 years old. You will be surprised how is he looking so young. At that time, the living lifetime is much longer than what it is now. Almost, they were living for almost 1,000 years in general, in that age. But I mean, Arjuna and Pandavas, they were towards the end of Dwapar Yuga, almost the beginning of Kali Yuga, so the lifetime is already quite low. So they almost lived about 120 plus years, not too long, but yeah, that was the age. So he would see his grandson as well. So on the battlefield, Arjuna could see all kinds of relatives. He could see persons like Bhurishrava, who were his father's contemporaries, Pandu's contemporaries. Grandfathers Bhishma and Somadatta, is a very old man also. Teachers like Dronacharya and Kripacharya. Maternal uncles like Salya and Shakuni. Brothers like Duryodhana. Sons like Lakshmana. Friends like Ashwadhama, son of Dronacharya. Well-wishers like Kritavarma. Sometimes well-wishers are on the other side because somehow they ended up being the other side because of the arrangements by Duryodhana. Before the war begins, both warriors on both sides try to recruit as many people as possible on their side, and sometimes the people who are well-wishers of Pandavas ended up being on the other side because they were pleased by the arrangements of Duryodhana or the words of Duryodhana, whatever. But just like before elections, the politicians move around parties. Similarly, before even the war begins, there was a great recruitment drive by both Pandavas and Kauravas, and all over the world there were people supporting both sides, and yeah, sometimes even well-wishers on the other side happened to be on the other side. He could see all the armies which contained many of his friends. So I think it's 6:20. We'll end here. We can open up for questions if you have any. So now the setting is almost there to begin the fight, and very interesting thing happens at this point. We'll discuss in the next few verses. Now the discussion begins between Krishna and Arjuna. A very interesting conversation begins. Verse 27 onwards, we'll discuss next week. So if you have any questions, we can discuss now. Feel free to ask questions. This is your time. Now I have a question online. Let's see. Hare Krishna. The kingdom was Pandu's, right, and given to Dhritarashtra to take care of until the Pandavas were old enough to manage the kingdom. Yes, exactly. Technically, then the kingdom did not belong to Dhritarashtra, right? Yes, that's true. Because Dhritarashtra was the elder brother, but because he's blind, he was not given the kingdom. Maharaj Pandu was given the kingdom, so he would rule. But unfortunately, he ends his life soon. His life ends soon because of a curse. At that time, temporarily, Bhishma Dev appoints Dhritarashtra as the. Ultimately, it was Bhishma Dev who was taking care of the kingdom, but he would appoint Dhritarashtra as the temporary stamp king. But Dhritarashtra gets attached to the kingdom, and he thinks that originally he was supposed to be the king, but at least he wants his sons to be the king. But actually, once Pandu becomes the king, naturally the Kauravas will not inherit it because it's Pandu and his generations. But even Pandus are fine. Actually, they are ready to share the kingdom with Kauravas. They want just few villages. They didn't want anything more than that. But unfortunately, Duryodhana, declares himself to be the king, and he would not want to share anything with Pandavas. So that created the whole situation for the war. I have a question about the way Draupadi was treated by her own husbands. Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask it, Prabhuji?
Yeah, sure.
So I had a question about the way Draupadi was used as a tool by Yudhishthira Maharaj in the game of gambling.
Correct.
And we know that Duryodhan and Dushashan and all the elders in the court, they were wrong in the way the Draupadi was mistreated. But what about Pandavas? Like nobody stopped Dhanamraj Yudhishthira from using Draupadi as a tool in the game of gambling.
Interestingly, at the time, see, they were in a humiliation mode at the time. They were defeated in the war. They were defeated in the gambling very badly, repeatedly, and they're overpowered at the moment in emotions. And they were expecting somebody like Dhritarashtra or Bhishma to actually interfere and stop all of this.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, Bhishma was thinking, see, this is a gambling match, and these guys were defeated, and they actually offered their wife. What should I do? What is right thing? What is right? He was in a dharma sandhya at that time. So, which is actually considered wrong. That was a wrong consideration by grandfather Bhishma Dev at that time. It was a very tense situation. In a very short time, all these things unfolded, and Pandavas didn't act out of anxiety, and they were expecting something would happen. Yeah, but overall it was a disastrous situation. They should have done something. Yeah, Bhima was boiling with anger, but he did not consider any act of anger at the time was right at the time. Yeah, so because they were defeated, so they were in a emotional down at the time. Yeah, so actually speaking, they were not really taking shelter of God at the time. Yeah, that was what acharyas explained.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That.
Ultimately, Draupadi remembers Krishna. You see, ultimately
Mhm.
she remembers immediately God's part. So they were saying Krishna would say relate this whole thing at the end uh, to his friend Uddhava. Uddhava was his dear devotee and friend. There was another interesting narration called Uddhava Gita that happens towards the end of Bhagavatam. It was a nice conversation before Lord leaves the world. There are some questions that are burning Uddhava, and both friends, they were very relaxed in a forest, and Uddhava would ask a lot of questions to Krishna. So at that time he would ask, "Oh Krishna, you are the Paramatma of every jiva. You are the ultimate controller of everything. Why would you watch your own brothers go through all this? Sorry, your own loving devotees go through all this anxiety. Why didn't you go ahead and protect Pandavas during this whole gambling match? Why do they have to go through?" And then Krishna says, "I'm ready to jump in." At the moment they would ask me. None of them remember me at the time. Yeah. Ultimately, even Draupadi, when she's getting disrobed, her first attempt is to try to protect herself by her own strength. That was again not very wise choice at the time. Understanding she is a woman, less power, by again is this strong fighter, Dushasan. She would have done something right away, but she would, and when she opens up her hands without trying to even protect her own dress, when she opens in full surrender, that's when Lord Krishna jumps and immediately, and when she shouts, because it is the jiva's choice that they have to make. Lord would not interfere unless, if somebody wants to be completely self-reliant, Lord would not interfere actually. We should be self-reliant. Of course, we should depend on our own strength, but at the same time, we should remember ultimately it is in the hand of God. When we have that kind of a attitude, that ultimately everything is in the hand of God, by His sanction, everything happens. When you have that mindset, then things would unfold in a much better way. And the third one.
Babaji,
Mhm.
this is Shivani. I have a question.
Yeah.
So Bhishma took a vow to only do dharma, right? Like to only do dharma.
No, his vow is to protect his father's kingdom, basically. His vow is to always, whoever is ruling, doesn't matter whether it is Duryodhana or Pandavas, whoever is ruling, I would support them. That's what his vow is. His vow is not to be on the side of dharma. Yeah, that's how it is. That was his vow, and that's what he stands by. Unfortunately, that standing by your own vow is not the best thing. Standing on the side of dharma is the best thing.
But also, like, wasn't Yudhishthira also known for his like dharma? Wasn't like he always known for only doing like dharma
Correct,
actions?
correct. Yes.
So then, when Draupadi was getting disrobed, why didn't he say anything?
That was a moment of weakness for them. That was they did not act in the time. I mean, they should have acted, but ideally, I will find more reasons. This is my understanding. I can find a little more about that.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Correct.
Prabhuji,
Mhm.
Yudhishthir did that again. If you if we read Mahabharata during that Agyatwas, when Draupadi was being insulted by Kichak, when they were staying with in the kingdom, and the Kichak, the brother of the queen.
Correct.
So he literally pulled her because Draupadi refused his advances, and she ran the court where Yudhishthira was sitting, and Kichak literally kicked her in middle of the court, and he was abusing her. Then too, Yudhishthira did not say anything. Like I understand that the way my understanding is because they were in Agyatwas, he couldn't reveal himself.
Yeah, they can't
But-
reveal themselves. Yeah.
yeah, they can't reveal himself, but Draupadi always went to Bhima because she knew that he is the only one who would avenge her. This even in the case of disrobing, she went to Bhima that I want Duryodhan to be killed because she did not trust any of her other husbands.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. See, that's why Mahabharata is it's a real story, right?
Mm-hmm.
See the perfect actions by all the individuals all the time. And yeah, so these kind of things happen once in a while. We see, though even they are they are the best kings, even then they don't act the best way all the time. Just like any human being, everybody has their weaknesses. In the moments of weakness, sometimes the determination of what is right gets a little bit uh, screwed up. So sometimes we don't see perfect actions by individuals. And of course, yeah, she has always the confidence of shelter from Bhima, and ultimately Bhima would protect her. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, Prabhuji.
yeah. Now let's see some questions here. Ganesh Prabhu, you mentioned sometimes good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people because of past karma, etc. So, what is the value of being spiritual? To learn to accept that and manage one's stress, anxiety for mental health? Very good question. So the purpose of leading spiritual life, that's what this question is, right? The spiritual life gives you, I mean, studying of scriptures like Bhagavad Gita gives you an understanding of how things unfold in life. Otherwise, when you are being good, when you are doing everything right, and things turn the other way, you would be really surprised, and it can be a blow to your confidence if you don't have the right understanding of how things work in this world or nature, how this entire nature working. So karma is a perfect law. That karma is a law. So when we understand the laws of how things in the nature work, we can see exactly why what we are going through. We have a right, so we have a proper balanced understanding of life when things are in reverse order, and everybody goes through uh, positives and negatives. It's just like stock, right? The stock goes up, go down, goes up. It's never stable. It's not always up. It's never always down. It's just, anything that goes down comes up, anything that goes up comes down. So similarly, life is a game of ups and downs, and the spiritual life gives us the shelter on which you can base your life's experiences in a meaningful way. It's not just a mental. It's not just a mental idea. It's actually an experiential thing. When you develop spiritually, actually you can see in your own life that when karma unfolds in a very bad way, you can face it with much more strength. And above that, it's not just a mental clearance that you get through practice of spirituality, it also the protection of God. For example, if suppose Draupadi was not taking shelter of Krishna at the time, she was just depending on her own strength, it would have been a much worse situation there. Similarly, like I was telling about another disciple of Prabhupada, when he went to Hong Kong to teach the message of Krishna, naturally there was an arrangement of God. So similarly, when we take to spiritual life seriously, there is a sublime help, support, even though we go through our karma, even though we go through the difficulties, but there is a shelter for you. We should not lose that faith in the shelter. It keeps protecting you, giving you strength, inner strength to face the situations in a better way. And there is God's help for those who take shelter of it. Yeah. So we learn to accept. Yes, that is true. We learn to accept and we manage in a better way. And there is, if the difficulty is to be like 100, the like say in a quantity of 100 times X, it would become like X. The difficulty would be reduced to you. Yeah. So otherwise it would have been so much worse, but because you have taken shelter of spiritual path, it is much far reduced. I hope that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Ganesh, for a very good question. Another question. I have a question. You said to reach God, we have to do good karmas. 1 second. But what if we have done some bad things unintentionally? For example, maybe in childhood, hurting some dragonfly, it will be considered as bad karma, but we won't do it once we know it is bad. Yeah, very good question. Very good question. What's your name? Sorry? Amchok. Then how do we reach God if we do these karmas unintentionally? Very good question. Yeah. Can I know the name? Okay. Anyway. So the question is, unintentionally, if you do mistakes, what happens? Will you be due for your karma? Yes. Anything good or bad that is done intentionally and unintentionally, there will be some consequence. But for those who have taken the spiritual path, there is an escape route for them. The karma cycle is like it's a cycle. It's considered cycle because you perform actions, those would create reactions, good or bad, and that would make your existence to continue in the material existence. Right? That's how this whole karmic bondage, samsara sagara, it's called samsara sagara. I mean, once you enter in this ocean, you would be just repeating your life in this existence because you do good and bad, and that you have to exhaust good as well as bad. And sometimes you go to Swargaloka, you would lead a very happy, luxurious life, like 5-star life, and then come back to this world, again perform karma, accumulate more, and again go back up. Or sometimes you go down to Narakaloka and suffer there, and again come. So, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva. The Jiva is continuing to rotate in this material existence, life after life. What is the escape route? The escape route is spiritual life. Spiritual life is the managing stress and anxiety is the byproduct of leading a spiritual life. The real purpose of spiritual life is to actually purify your existence. Purify means to nullify your karma, both good as well as bad. When your karma is blanket, clean, there is no reason for your existence in the material existence because you are clean. Your baggage is your karmic baggage is what making you to continue your existence in this world. We'll discuss much more in detail in the 3rd and 4th chapter of Gita, but just to give you an idea here, yeah. So when you lead a spiritual life, when you understand your relationship with God, when you perform yoga, especially in this case, specifically Bhakti Yoga, the easiest way is in this age that you can perform is just repeating the name of God, the holy name of God, Govinda, Krishna, Vasudeva, just repeating Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Just by repeating that cleanses your consciousness. Your consciousness is basically summum bonum of all the karmic bondages that you have in this existence. When you clean up that whole thing, that whole karmic bondage that you have, then you have no reason to exist. So even if you have done intentionally or unintentionally, you can cleanse all of that in this one life just by taking shelter of God. Yeah. So you may have done something wrong in the past. You may have to, sometimes for those who take shelter of God, like spiritualists, these karmas that you have to suffer in the future, they would come as a dream. In the dream, you would be arrested or you would be chopped and your karma would be eradicated. See, Krishna or God would arrange in such a way that your karma gets exhausted through a simple dream. Otherwise, which you had to go through in your real life would be exhausted in a very simple way through a dream. Sometimes even great devotees had bad dreams because, some millions of lives back or whatever, they had some negative account and they had to adjust that. So that would just come as a dream and go away. So they would adjust that. Or something big would have happened, like a big accident where you would lose your both legs, would just go away just by fall down. When you go through some small difficulties, you would, okay, thank God, I'm gone. My karma is gone with this. So for those who take shelter of God, God's support is always there, and He would try to minimize all of that you have to go through really. That's how you're protected by God. And that's the real purpose of our existence, to actually cleanse our consciousness. Chitta Suddhi. Chitta means consciousness. Suddhi means cleansing. So when we do that through the study of scriptures, Swadhyaya, like you are all doing this now once a week, you can do that every day. When you slowly develop some interest, you can do that every day. You can read at your home at least 1 or 2 verses. And through sadhana, through practice of yoga, in this case, the easiest way is to repeat the name of God. When you repeat the name of God, immediately your mind gets cleansed. So that's the power of name. Name, my name, your name, or the names of people in this world or things in this world, they have no potency. But the name of God has potency, power. It's as powerful as God, it's Himself. So when you repeat Krishna, Govinda's name, or through the chanting, specifically in this case, the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is recommended in all the scriptures. Kalir dosh nide razan. So Kali Yoga is full of faults, but taking shelter of the name of God is one great saving in this world. When one chants the name of God, his chitta becomes Suddhi, and naturally when he leaves the body, he doesn't need to go through this material existence anymore. Yeah. I hope that answers. I'm Chok. Hare Krishna, I don't know your name. Sagar has a question here. How do we convert good karma to akarma? Very nice question. Very nice question. Thank you, Sagar, for asking. So so good karma is when you do good actions. Like you could be charitable, giving certain things for the benefit of the needy, or you could feed some people, or you help somebody in necessity. So those are all good actions. And they're always, charity and good works are always recommended even in Gita. But when you do that, when you say, suppose you give charity to somebody, God becomes so kind to you, He would give you, when you donate food to somebody, you would for many lifetimes will not have to starve. That kind of good karma you get. But when you change your consciousness, when you give this charity, but understand that you are just a trustee in the hand of God. You are not the giver here. you're actually working through the hand of God. You are only an instrument in the hand of God. If that is your consciousness and you give the donation in the name of God, that becomes akarma. So akarma works to cancel good and bad karma. Not even the the things that to be accumulated, the past good karmas and past bad karmas, that gets nullified through akarma. And the best akarma that you can do is the chanting of the holy name. So when I say it wipes out your karmic baggage that is associated with you in your life, that is through the practice of spiritual life, especially chanting of the name of God. So that is an act of akarma. When you perform that, it just burns away millions of lifetimes of your karma at a very rapid pace. Very rapid pace. But still, because we have infinite lifetimes of karma that is accumulated, it takes time. It's not easy to burn out all of that. It takes time. It takes a lifetime of an effort. So yeah, we continue to do that every day on a daily basis. I do chant the name of God every single day without miss. So we will learn that as we go, as we move forward. So yeah, when we perform a karma, it is basically the change of consciousness. You act in a good way, but when you act as a trustee in the hand of God, that becomes a karma. You can do charity, you can help others, but always remember you are helping on behalf of God. So when you have that consciousness that does not accumulate good or bad, it instead accumulates a karma. A karma is not an accumulation, it just burns. It's a burning of existing karma. Because you have the right consciousness, right spirit, you understood your existence properly. So when you have that existence understanding properly, when you act in this world, that naturally burns away your so because your good karma, because of your good karma, you had to act in a certain way in this world. That goes away because you have a right understanding. That's how it works. It just burns away your bad karma, because you had a bad karma or a good karma. Now you are acting not impelled by that good or bad karma, because you have a right understanding of life. I hope kind of clarifies that.
Prabhuji, while doing that good karma, does that mean that I should not okay, I am doing this from God behalf?
Yes.
I should not feel like I should not expect anything from them?
Yeah.
Or is it like we have to chant every day, even though you are doing good karma?
Yes. Let me answer one by one. So when you act, just act as an instrument in the hand of God. Okay. So when you do that, that is an act, that is an akarmic act that does not definitely give you good or bad karma. So you're not adding to your account of good or bad karmic reactions. Instead, you have no good, but it also burns a little portion of your previous previous karmic balances, because previous karmic balances that is within your consciousness, they act as accelerators for action in this current circumstance. Means they act as so they're something called vasanas. Have you heard about vasanas? So for example,
No,
somebody who is young, a 5-year or 6-year-old boy, he would have this desire to steal. That is because of his past vasanas, means past karma. Past karma forces certain vasanas. Somebody has the desire to control people, somebody has the desire to steal, somebody has, at a very young age, at 6 or 7 or 8, they have certain natures that were inbuilt because forced by their own karma. They had certain nature now that is developed in them. So forced by your karma, you have certain desires to act in this world. But because now you have taken the path of spirituality and taken shelter of God, your outlook has changed, your understanding has changed, your consciousness has changed. Now you act in a different spirit. So naturally, you're not acting impelled by your past karma, because past karma imbibes in you certain desires, certain ways of action. If you're too much abused in the past, you would act in a certain way because those create certain vasanas. Those people who are abused at a very young age, they want to abuse in the future. They become abusers in the future because impelled by their own what happened to them in their past life. So they would now, so that would accumulate new karma for them. That's how the karmic cycle works, because vasanas would impel us in various ways to act in this world. So that would not happen once you understand life in a broader way, with a better understanding of how everything is working, how this karma is tying me up. So now you have a much deeper understanding of how this whole thing is organized and working. Now you act with a deeper convictions, deeper sense of meaning and purpose of life. Now you won't act in the same way that you were acting before. So that would stop accumulating for sure new karma, and also tries to reduce your past karmic reactions a little bit. But when you chant the name of God, that is like a rapid fire. No, there are different ways to fight, right? You can also fight with a small knife, but you could be easily defeated. That's like, just acting just like a trustee. All of that, those are all good things. They would help a little bit to ward off your new good and bad karma. But when you are chanting the name of God or practicing yoga, that is like rapid fire on the karmic bonds. So they would just burn away all the accumulated vast mountains of karma that we have to go through in this life and in the future. So that's how it works. I hope that.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Srijit and Aranya Mataji. Prabhu, is there nothing we can do about the present which is due to past karma? Very good question. Yes, when you have right understanding of life, you would feel much less pressure of the past karma. When you start studying Gita, when you start attending these classes, when you start chanting the name of God seriously, lot of emotional anxieties that we have to go through by our karma would be far reduced. That works. I have gone through a lot of anxiety, especially during IIT days. I can see how that has changed when I started chanting the name of God and started attending Gita classes. I could see a sea of change right out. So definitely it unburdens your heart far less. And talking to people who are in this path also gives you a better understanding of life. That's how you can deal better. Yeah, I mean, whatever we are due, we have to go through it. But as I was giving the example of that boat, you are in the ocean, but still you have some shelter. Imagine the person who does not have any shelter. He would just drown, and he would. That's why even you see some rich people die of suicide. Billionaires die of suicide. We see there was a very good actor recently passed away in India, Rajput or something. I don't know the name fully, but it was a very sad story. He was a very talented actor, young, energetic, but because of the situations, he could not face it. He could not go through the emotional burn down that he was going through. He took out his life. He thought that is the best. A person ready to sacrifice his life. Imagine how much drowned they are in their own misery. But those who have taken shelter of God, and so that's why the holy friendship, talk to people. You can talk to me, talk to others as well. So when we are in anxiety, that's what we have to do. We should not take shelter of wine or gambling, or all these are very bad shelters. Everybody needs shelter. No matter what, everybody has some shelter. It could be movies, it could be gambling. Everybody has shelter. Somebody takes shelter of wine. They think drinking wine, sorry, some noise for here. Drinking wine would take away their anxiety, but unfortunately it does not. It's only a temporary relief. The real relief comes when one takes to all these problems can be solved by taking shelter of spiritual path. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. You have to learn the process. You have to practice yoga. But it is touching. It is solving the problem at the root. When you want to solve a problem, you want to solve at the root, not at the peripheral way. Everything else is a patchwork. Everything else is a patch. You do whatever in your life, it's just a patchwork. Leading a spiritual life takes away the anxieties of current life, and also ultimately the real purpose is to go back to God. That is the ultimate goal. That would be achieved. Is there nothing a devotee can do to be forgiven? Yeah, you can take shelter of God and He would reduce your miseries to a minimum. That's what we discussed so far. Yes, I mean, we cannot say I just want to be happy all the time. It's impossible for anybody. But it would be unburdened. Your heart would be unburdened by when you take shelter of God to a far less degree. Even imagine the difficulties and challenges that Pandavas have to go through. How much their house is burned, they were insulted, their wife was disrobed, they were taken out of their kingdom, and all this while Krishna is there as their best support. So we take shelter of God, and again, those were exemplary stories. Those stories happened to teach us lessons. It's not because of their bad karma. We should not think like that. Not everybody is a story of their bad karma. Many of these incidents were historical stories. It was to show in such difficulty also, these people haven't left the shelter of God. They haven't complained that, oh God, why are you not doing what, why should all this war to happen? Krishna can just do he can just breathe out and just burn away everybody to roost, right? He can do all of that. It's nothing. But he wants everything to happen in the glory of Arjuna and Pandavas. He wants to show that Dharma would ultimately win. So we cannot easily understand the mind of God. But, and through all the difficulties, when we stand by Dharma and we act properly and still have faith in God and lead our life in a very purposeful, meaningful way, then Krishna understands, or God understands, that we actually are serious about going back to Godhead, not returning to this middle existence anymore. He wants to give us tests to really be sure that we are serious. Otherwise, if you are desirous to continue enjoying this world, yeah, good, go on here, continue further lives here. But when we take shelter of God slowly and slowly, when we connect with Him deeply, then we realize, yeah, actually, no, that is my real life. Spirit that is eternal, the soul that is eternal, wants to live in the existence of eternality, not in this temporary existence. Soul belongs to spiritual world, not to the material world. When we understand that deeply and really take shelter of it, yes, God would give all these tests to make sure we are ready for it, and He will take us back.
Prabhuji, can I ask one more question, if it is okay?
Yes.
So, I have a question about the Holy War, which was the war for the Dharma. At the end of the war, if you see in Pandava's side also, all the great warriors were killed, right?
Yes, yeah.
Draupadi lost all her 5 sons. Abhimanyu died.
Correct.
Draupadi's brother died. Like Ashwathama burned the camps, and everybody, like only Pandavas and Draupadi and few other warriors and
Yeah.
Krishna and few of his associates remained. So
Correct.
even it was the war for the dharma. Like everybody died. So do you think there was a bigger lesson that Krishna wanted to teach us? Like, even though it was a war for dharma, Does
Yes.
it have a big picture?
No, the bigger picture is the world is unburdened by these very powerful kings. They are all too strong. And the time has come for Kali Yuga to begin. Kali Yuga is a very weak people. And too many of the strong people would not work out there. And so, it's time to clean up the entire thing. There was a higher purpose, and also to, wipe out these, especially Duryodhana and all, adharmic people. Yeah, so that was the higher purpose. And in a war, ultimately the lesson that we can all learn is that, in the unavoidable wars like this, there is no real, gain. Everything will be destroyed. War, we should ward off in all possible ways. But here it would not happen. So Duryodhana would incite them to war. He just wants everybody to be destroyed on Pandava's side. So war was inevitable. And as Kshatriya, their dharma is to stand up for fight when they are asked to. They cannot just run to a forest, and that's like a cowardly act. That's not proper on a Kshatriya dharma. So they have to act on their stand on their dharma, stand for their dharma. Yeah. So, and ultimately, by the way, even though there was such a destruction, because they were all died on the battlefield, especially those, they have all seen God, Krishna before dying, most of them went to spiritual world. Some of them went to heavenly planets. So their future was much brighter in that sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no loss to them, because existence is much happier in the upper planetary systems. So our planet is Karma Bhumi, Earthly, Bhu, Bhuvar Loka. These are where people really work hard. They are the most hardworking people are in this Bhu and Bhuvar Loka, Earthly planetary systems. There are higher planetary systems like Maharloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, ultimately Brahmaloka, where life is much more happier, peaceful. There are great descriptions of this in Bhagavatam. And there are lower planetary systems. Even lower planetary systems, there is a lot of sense enjoyment. But anyway, that's off topic to this. Yeah, but anyway, any of these planetary systems is not our goal. We don't want to go to Brahmaloka also. That's not our goal. We want to go back to spiritual worlds, not to any of the existence within the material worlds. We don't want. Because there was a shloka that says, Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravrittina Arjuna Mamupeksha Kaunteya Punarjamma Navritti. Which means, even if you go to Brahmaloka in this middle existence, where life is so much happier, there is no good, because again you have to come back. It's a samsara saga only. Just like 5-star prison versus ordinary prison. It's just a better, any place in the middle world is like a prison house. It's just a place of pain and misery. You have to go through that. There is no way out. You can escape pain in this middle existence. Even in the planet of Brahmaloka or even Indraloka. Indraloka is a little better than us. It's just a next planetary system. But Brahmaloka is far ahead of us. It's far more superior to any of these other planetary systems. Even there, life is much long. We may live like lakhs of years, but still, it's not worth it. So the spiritualists, those who are on the spiritual path, they don't want any existence in the middle existence. They want to just go back to God. Even though the life is far difficult in the current time and existence, that should act as an impetus for us to really take shelter of God more and go back to God by seriously practicing spiritual life. we should take that as a hint to be more serious in spiritual life. We should not somehow adjust. Okay, we should adjust to lead a reasonably peaceful and happy life in this world. That yeah, that's fine, perfectly all right. But we should be mindful of our ultimate goal always. Always, that's our ultimate goal. To always think of going back to God. Not to settle for anything less. No, we don't want to settle for any higher planetary systems or even this planetary system. Yeah, we want to achieve the best. Yeah, I mean, see, based on our karma, our everybody has their own due. Sometimes it is better, little better. Sometimes little bad. In the big scheme of things, don't worry too much. Don't get too much bogged down by our current existence. You could be a poor person leading a very poor life, like a clerk, or even like a beggar. Also, doesn't matter. If you are on the spiritual path, your ultimate goal is far better than what the best in this world like Jeff Bezos can get. That's what you're aiming. So what is there for us to worry? Our aim is far ahead of any of the things that can be achieved by any of these materialistic people in the world. So that should be the prominent thing in our mind. So we should not be bogged down by the current difficulties of material life. Yeah, they can be there based on our past. Yeah, we take shelter of God, but we don't complain all the time about that. We just focus on spiritual life seriously and be happy, because you're getting this higher understanding of life. What more can you ask for? It is said, after many millions of lifetimes of roaming in the material world, one fortunate soul gets to understand the purpose of life. Now imagine, there are billions of people. How many are really inquiring into the spiritual life? How many are reading Gita? Hardly. Out of thousands, one would do it. And out of thousands of those who really try to understand, one would really understand and achieve the purpose. So it is such a rare thing that you are now, it is, whatever you are doing now, it's much far better, much far rarer than achieving the best, you becoming the CEO of the best company in the world. I'm telling you. So it may not really appear like a great thing right now for you, but it is for sure. So take this seriously, study Gita with me and study the books and practice yoga. We'll learn slowly. We'll take a session on that at some point. So take this is the ultimate thing. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay, if no questions, I really enjoyed the question and answers by all of you. This is the spirit. This is the way we want to go on. Of course, it took a little while longer today, but I hope you all really, you are really my best batch so far. I have been teaching this here. Frankly, the kind of questions that I'm seeing, especially from some of you like Ganesh, Aranya Mataji, even Sudha Mataji. Yeah, you're all asking wonderful questions, and this is the way to learn. Yeah, so we'll take this forward and learn more things next week. Thank you all. So we'll end the class here.
Braja, are you listening me?
Hello?
Venkatesh, this is Sandhya Peddamma, Guru Garu. I'm
Oh.
so happy to hear. 5 o'clock to now I am listening. I'm so happy. Once again, I will join in this.
Thank you so much, Sanjay Peddamma.
I don't know whether I can use my word Peddamma or not, but you are my Guru. So happy to
I'm a
listen.
small person. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you all. I think
Thank you,
class
Prabhuji.
is over. Ania? I'll end the recording.